yeah, the idea of having $100,000 in Bitcoin and being able to cash flow $40,000 of that and using the rest in collateral, and you pay it down, 6 or 7% or whatever it is, and it means you don't have to sell your Bitcoin and you can stay within the ecosystem. Like, I think that's going to just continue to grow. And I think that's ultimately a good thing. Like, if we don't have to use banks, like, amazing.
Really fucking good to finally sit down with you and actually do this. I'm really glad we have the podcast. Lepo Dog is a really nice addition.
It just makes it, for a couple of ADHD guys like us, just really brings things down a couple of notches.
Maybe we're going to have a little distracted pat. No, everything's fine.
If you don't need something to fidget with, you've got a dog to pat.
This is great. I want to get a dog just for pose.
The Pode dog.
Pode dog. Girlfriend really wants a pug, but I just can't, man. I need a dog I could go for a run with.
You need like a man's dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I'm
like Basil probably is not going to run too far with you, but like
he'll get a go.
He's a man that's going to sit on the pod with you and just keep you like nice and calm.
My mate ran with his dog a lot, and the vet was like, you have to stop running with him so much because he's losing too much weight.
Well, training for marathons.
Literally, he's like doing like 10, 15K runs. The dog loves it, but it was like, they were like, Christ, he's eating everything, but he's seriously underweight.
So yeah, he was running 30 kilometers a week with me.
yeah, that's still fucking solid. Yeah, man.
But no, thanks for having me, man. And sorry for rug pulling you the last time we
that's absolutely fine. That's all good, man. I don't think I've been. That's not a rug. I've been
rugged.
I've been rugged a lot the past month.
That's not a rug.
I've been donating Solana to the devs on pretty frequent occasion, man.
A calendar reschedule is not a rug. That's
It's absolutely fine. But dude, very glad to sit down with you. It's fucking all time.
No, man, thanks for having me. I mean, I feel as though we're in enough group chats now and we're talking enough about crypto this time to actually, dial in. And I mean, you've been crushing it too on the memes lately, right?
Memes? They've been doing like pretty well relative to the rest of the port. Like, it's one of those things that I have a couple of friends that are just kind of like way better at it than me. And so I kind of was just like copy trading them for a little while. And then it just ended up getting real fucking stupid. And it's the sort of thing where I'm like, it's such a weird thing to be in because they're so kind of pointless.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if memes are bad for the market in general. Like, in terms of like, you have all of this capital come in and then the only thing that people really want to invest in is like, it's almost this wider acceptance of like, it's all a Ponzi. And
it's a great question. And I've heard both sides of the story. I think like the reality is there's a lack of narratives in the market right now for anything else to be invested in. Like, if we go back to 2017, we had the ICO boom and everyone just was piling in ETH into ICOs. 2020, we had NFTs, gaming, AI. There's so much exciting shit. It's like, what's really exciting about this market right now? Like, your Bitcoin, okay, great. But what are the quote unquote more sophisticated crypto folks going to rotate their money into? Like, memes are the only thing that are really like half exciting at this point in time. ETH's underperforming. We've got SEC looks like they're suing Uniswap. So DeFi is like under the finger again. Gaming and metaverse is kind of it's ticking along, but nothing new's coming out. There's not like this crazy new tech like we've had, or narrative or innovation like we've had in previous cycles. So I feel as though that's why it's like, well, let's go to memes.
Yep. Do you think we're going to see a change soon where it's actually like, I can see some things happening, but they're kind of set for later on in the year. Like, there's lots of really, really interesting games. Now, I've been bearish blockchain games for a very long time in the sense of like, again, not poo-pooing the tech side or like the novelty of having NFTs in games. And like, I know a lot of people get kind of upset at if you just kind of paint it all with the one brush. But I do think the blockchain games historically have been one of those things that it's like, everyone comes in and I play them because there's tokens and there's assets in there that are going up a lot. And so it's like, no one gives a fuck about the game. Yeah. The games are usually like, I'm not going to name names, but it's like a lot of like the really hyper successful things of last cycle were kind of a thing that like I downloaded and was like, oh, cool. Like, I'm not a huge gamer, but like I have some kind of feeling for what's fun, like everyone does. Like, I'm probably the perfect normie gamer. Like, I'll do it if it's fun. And I kind of fucked around with everything and was like,
Yeah, we're not really hitting that. I think people like...
What's happening?
Yeah, you're right. Like, crypto folks are playing for the economics, right? Like, economics are kind of interesting, but in a bear market or when the economics aren't really favourable to people making money, you have to go back to the game. And if the game's shit, well, it's like, well,
Wait, what am I doing?
what are we doing here again?
Yeah.
And I think it's like, for us to really break into that gaming narrative and like really expand the ecosystem, like we really have to break into non-crypto folks.
Yeah.
And I think the games just aren't there right now. Like, I'm not a big gamer either, but the economics certainly I don't think are that favourable for a lot of individual tokens. Like, Illuvium for me is an interesting one. Like, I think it's got a great narrative. I think the games are probably some of the best that we've seen in terms of Web3. But you look at like how much of the circulating supply they've increased and where the market cap needs to get back to previous all-time highs. Like, I think the token price is down 93% from all-time highs, but the market cap is probably 18 to 20% off all-time highs. And a lot of retail investors don't understand that, right? They're probably sitting down 70, 80%, depending on when they bought, holding off for dear life, going, oh, let's all pray it goes back to all-time highs. This thing needs to get in the billions, if not tens of billions FTV just to get back to where it was before.
Yeah.
And I talk about this a lot to new members coming in and like the retail, and they're like, oh, I didn't even know that. Like, wow, like really, because they see token price and it's like, oh, it's at 150, it needs to get to 15,000. Like, that's only, that's not far away.
Yeah.
Like, well, it doesn't really work like that. You know what I mean?
I think there's been a lot of like those kind of inflation things that people have forgotten about from last cycle. Like even Solana, like it's at all-time high market cap. Kind of, it reached it a couple of weeks ago, but it's like, it's still $120 something off all-time high prices. And so, it's kind of coming through and establishing itself as the third network now, I think, if it works.
No, I definitely agree. And I think like, but it's getting stress tested right now. Like, if we look at the meme culture and the airdrops, and like it's got a lot of attention. It's really being stress tested. I definitely think it sort of fits in number 3. But Solana's not even too bad. You look at something like, XRP, for example, which I'm just generally just not a fan of at all. And you look at that, that's XRP's down the most it's ever been. No, the down against BTC terms, it's highest in 3 years. It's down like 55% this year against BTC. And again, the circulating supply is just like expanding constantly, and people are, still holding on for dear life, I guess, on a lot of these tokens, going, oh, well, when are they going to come back? But a lot of these older chains, a lot of the older layer ones, Cardano, Polkadot, like, I just don't see how these are going to compete or get a large market share in future months and years. It's like, I don't see there being like a big wave for Cardano or Polkadot versus Sol, ETH, Celestia, like all these other newer chains that are coming out. It's like, why would they? I don't see how it's going to happen. Yes, I think at the end of the day, the tide lifts all boats in bull markets. And I say this quite often. It's like, even if you hold those things, it's not like it's not going to go up, but it's opportunity cost for me of like, where are the narratives? Where is the money going to go from the new money coming in to get the most growth?
Yeah. Well, I was chatting with a guy from Tangent Ventures, he was on the pod recently, and he was talking about just essentially Cardano being like a PhD's wet dream of like, but it doesn't like fucking do anything. Dude. Like one of my like investment theses, very loosely used as a term.
Dot points. Investment dot points.
It's something. I'm calling it a thesis, but it was essentially like, because it's like my initial capital this cycle it's not like, my size is not size. And so I was kind of like, okay, where can I do almost like spray and pray, but kind of concentrated as much as possible that can pick things up. And I was like, as memes were starting, I went to kind of each chain or like layer 1 that was either functional or kind of being released soon. Like there's a couple where, there's layer 1s that are doing airdrops. And so I was kind of like just trying to find the fastest horse meme coin on each chain. Stupidly, I held Pepe ages ago and then got rid of it. Yeah. Because I was like, yeah, well, it's not doing anything. And then just kind of woke up one morning and was like,
yeah. That's sweet smell of defeat. It's
I was like,
I've been there too.
Can't win them all. But it is that feeling of like feeling paralyzed, of being like, oh God, if I sell this one thing, it's going to be $1 billion. And I feel like that can be really counterproductive.
Dude, crypto is such like a psychological warfare, and not even really against other people. It's actually like psychological warfare against yourself. I've been talking about this a lot through that group, is like, at the end of the day, like, the only thing that you need to win or beat is your own fucking brain. Because in the periods of now, like opportunity cost, what do you hold, what do you sell? That's a difficult decision when you go to actually sell. You know, the time that you sell, do you think it's going to keep going? If you sell too early, then you've got the fear of or the remembering of you holding all those tokens and now you don't have that and then it rips, or you don't sell at all and it crashes. Like, the psychological warfare that you have to play against, and then also trying to figure out, because crypto makes, kind of not much sense either, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
kind of
it's like, we had a platinum member the other day. It's like, why is because we're doing a deep dive on Maple, one of the projects I've invested in.
Oh, yep.
They actually put out financial statements. You can actually see the revenue.
Whoa.
God forbid. God forbid.
Yeah. Can I get a P&E on Maple? Yeah.
And, looking at the numbers, are like, if you were to look at this as like basically, I think they were doing $160,000 revenue quarters, so 50K revenue, and burning 1.4 a quarter, right? So arguably, quite a substantial amount for a startup. And the question sort of came through was like, how is this thing valued at 120 mil FDV at these numbers? It was like, well, it's not the same as a normal startup. You're not evaluating crypto projects on EBITDA or revenue multiples. Like, you're looking at a range of different things. Most of them you can't actually, pinpoint as like an actual number. Things like sentiment, narrative, community, potential growth, like markets that are going to go in. Like, a lot of these things you then overlay with like sentiment, on-chain analysis, and things like FDV or loan value or like, on-chain movements, wallets, all those. But there's no one singular blueprint to evaluate a company or a project. So then you got that side. Then you got like the tech, right? Cardano, arguably the best tech going around. But
on paper, yeah.
On paper.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, build it and they will come isn't necessarily right or true. And I've spoken to a few projects, in the time I've been in crypto, looking at potentially investing and speaking to the founders. And you can speak to the most smartest dudes who are creating this unbelievable synthetic layers 3 tech that's going to revolutionize or do all this stuff. And they're like, the reality is no one gives a fuck and no one needs this.
Yep.
And that again is a dichotomy against meme coins, which is like, no one needs meme coins, but they are the things that are going up the most. So it's like, it's such a fascinating space to be in, because really at the end of the day, nothing makes sense sometimes.
I do think that it's like there's so much to do with the valuation stuff. And this is something that I can attest to, because like when I first started looking at crypto, it was very much from like this perspective of like, I'm not even kidding. Like, I can't get the bloody EBITDA on Bitcoin, so it must be a fucking Ponzi. And that's like what I initially ran when I first looked at it. Also because I had friends that were like super into it and were like super evangelical and were like, bro, you have to buy Bitcoin. And I was like, well, fuck, dude, I don't fucking... Jesus. I was like, dude, chill. I don't feel like buying it. Why do you want me to buy it so bad?
Why are you taking my pants off?
This is like 2019, mind you. And so my mate ended up working like at an actual crypto trading firm in Sydney.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was this like very like... It felt like it was pushy, and I felt like it was right message, wrong package for me. But I did kind of avoid picking things up for a long time, because I was like, and I really did mid-curve it for the longest possible time, where I was like, I sat on the sidelines for so long. Like, I bought some Bitcoin ETH in 2020, like late 2020. And then, I kind of just didn't really, nothing really clicked for me with it. It was more just like okay, cool, I have some exposure to it. And then the more that I started looking into it and the more I started actually going through what the value prop was, because I did want to formalize a way of looking at how do you value these things that isn't just like, there's a bull market and there's a good narrative, and so it's super speculative and people are just buying shitloads of it, which like a fair bit of it is during crazy run-ups. But I've seen lots of things from a couple of the guys at Blockworks, which is like a crypto media publication, are really good at this. And they essentially talk about blockchain projects being very similar to commodities in the sense that they're like digital goods, and they kind of provide platforms for things rather than being revenue generating investable asset like a Facebook or because everyone's like, oh well, why don't they just have stuff? I mean, to a lesser extent, ETH kind of has valuation metrics that you could look at. Deflation, burn rate, what the actual So I'm like, there's things, but it's a whole can of worms that I feel like is. It's almost like a prophylactic to TradFi because they look at it and they're like, no, it's that meme of the guy in the with the coffee and the Patagonia grey sweater being like,
It's like I was watching the We Crash documentary the other day, and when they went to do their IPO, and they basically just went against all of the normal paperwork that you got to fill out, and they just created this like photographic story of like the WeWork culture. And I feel as though that's kind of like reminiscent of crypto. It's like, no, don't worry about financials.
How about these pictures?
What? EBITDA? No. Look at our office. Like,
literally.
Like, look at the plants we have. Like, I feel as though that's like...
Have you seen the plants? When you get that on a pitch, you're like, sell it.
This is why it's worth 40 billion, So, back to sort of what you were asking around, like, the gaming and like, I just think, I don't know, at the end of the day, we're still in this sort of period of like betting on what we think is going to happen in the future. And I think that ultimately is what I put down to the valuations that you can get on crypto is based on the fact that a lot of people are speculating that this could actually happen at some point in time. How many years we're actually trading in the future, who knows? But at the end of the day, like, people like to speculate. The idea for retail investors that you can make life-changing amounts of money in an asset class where they can get access to has never been available before. You can't do this in the stock market. You can't invest in private startups in Australia unless you're an accredited investor. Like, they literally make it impossible for an everyday Joe to buy into early stage businesses. You cannot do it outside of crypto. Like, you literally, if you don't have a lot of money, you cannot buy early stage investments anywhere. And that for me is like, that's what triggers people, because they're like, oh wow, I have this asset class and I see a lot of people want to make a lot of money. I don't have enough money. I want to invest. I want to learn about this. And people go on this journey, and I feel as though like crypto is this thing that inspires them to become like their own like investor. Like, they start to learn about something. It's fun. It's exciting. It's like, it's new knowledge. It's something new. And I think that's where people ultimately, don't necessarily know what they're doing, or some do, but people like to speculate, and there's a whole culture built around it. Like, it's a whole industry being built off, basically hope that this will change their lives. And that's kind of just such an interesting and fascinating, idea.
Do you reckon that's part of the reason, like, you started Collective Shift side of things?
I started Collective Shift. So Bitcoin was the thing that stood out to me the most. Like, back in 2017, an old friend of mine introduced me to Bitcoin. He sent me some Bitcoin. I was like, well, what the fuck just happened? Like, oh my goodness. And I was running a sportswear company at the time. So we were manufacturing sports uniforms out of China and Pakistan and selling them into Tassie. And I was, 15 at the time, 16. And I was like, I don't know what money is. I'm just like making some money and like selling some shit. And like, I know it takes 4 weeks to get to China, and they take a bunch of like fees, and the bank always asks me what I'm doing. And it's like, why is this such a pain in the ass? But never really thought into it too much more until like, I was like, I need to find an alternative to this. And like, it was like, just by luck, my friend was into crypto. He sent me some Bitcoin. I was like, whoa, how you just sent me that to here, and the bank didn't ask. Wait, there's no bank. Wait, I just got that instantly. And I literally rang up my guys in China. I was like, do you take Bitcoin? And they're like, God, no. So,
Absolutely.
I was like, oh, cool. Let's use the fiat system still then.
Yeah.
But then I just went on this like 6-month journey and rabbit hole. I was like, wait, what's going on? Wait, the government can print money? Inflation? What is that? Wait, they can literally just do whatever they want and no one asks twice. Wait, that's why everything goes up and wages stay stagnant, and like, wait, the government has control of everything? And I was 16 or 17 at the time, and I was just like what the trail is going on here? And I remember just talking to mum and dad about it, and they didn't know either. And I'm like, wait, so no one knows about this? And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is going to be massive. This is ridiculous. And then basically got rid of my company and went all in. I started working for an old friend of mine who was running a crypto YouTube channel. It was like an education sort of play. I was like running operations, marketing, just, I'd quit school at the time to run my sportswear business. So I was no qualifications, but just loved entrepreneurship and loved building businesses, and then fell in with crypto. So I had this role. I volunteered there for with him for a few weeks and just learned. I just remember listening to Antonopoulos every day on YouTube. I was like, Andreas was like in my ears every day. I read the Bitcoin, his books on Bitcoin. Like I was just for 6 or 8 months just going super deep. And I'm not a super technical guy, so it took me a long time to really wrap my head around it. And then one day I was just like, oh my God, this is just going to be the future. So yeah, started working for him, went all in on crypto, put everything I had. I was still sharing a bunk bed with my brother back then, took just everything I had, I put in it and started working for him for 3 years. That business was going really good, learned a lot about crypto. Unfortunately, that business partnership just completely went to shit. I got completely screwed on that. Lost a lot of money, went through a really rough time. You know, this was collective shift had already begun and we were starting a separation and then shit hit the fan and then it was just like a complete and utter disaster. And sort of made it through that period of time pretty scarred. Took me about a year to really like get back on my feet. The collective shift just it survived the whole way through somehow. And what at the core of the reason why I stuck at it and thought it was required is because there was just nowhere that I felt in Australia that had like a trusted, reputable, independent information. Like influencers were pumping stuff. The ICO boom was crazy. And I used to work for an influencer and saw the inner workings. Like projects literally make these influencers sign non-disclosure agreements to pay them obscene amounts of money to promote projects, right? And we never did that. But I saw it and I saw who else the contracts were going towards because we saw the deal terms and I'm seeing all your major influencers that we could name right now doing the exact thing that they were asking us to do. I'm like, oh my God, this is just a big Ponzi. Like everyone's just getting paid to promote these projects. They all own a stake in it. They pump it up. There are non-disclosures. The retail buy, they sell. And it's just on repeat. I'm like, oh my God.
Well, that is the danger with like the anonymous nature of like, I mean, you can have obviously you can track, wallets to exchanges and all that kind of stuff, but it's like you can kind of spin up a lot of fresh wallets and you can have these influencers with these huge holdings. Don't show up like, essentially like there's no on-chain transactions really for them because you get there. But yeah, there's been a lot of projects, even in like the last 2 years, like just doing like very, very basic investigative work into some of this stuff. You're just like, whoa, wow. And lots of, 3, 4, 500K plus followers. Just, there's always a tell when it's just like, oh, and here's a ticker and I love this coin so much. You're like,
it's just so cringy. Dude. And that's like that was the biggest thing as well, looking back. The incentivization model of these influencers is affiliate links, pump and dumps, paid promotion, advertising. That's how they make their money, right? If you go to all the major influencers, their top link is probably a Bybit link, right? So how can you be talking about investing and then making a commission off your clients or your audience, then trading that information? Like that makes no sense to me. That is not aligned because you're basically then profiting off decisions your customers are making. Now, if you were managing their funds, different story, but you are basically making money off every time they go and make an action. And that's why like not a lot of influencers talk about selling either. It's all about, because they don't make money on you selling. It's about buy.
Yeah.
So we flipped the switch, and because I'd been burnt in this space before, and I used to work with a guy and I lost a lot of money, and I just saw everything that was wrong about this space. And I believed in Bitcoin so much, and I was like, I just genuinely wanted to help other people navigate and invest it the right way. And that's when I started working with Matt. I mean, I was working with Matty in the last, business, and he's just one of the smartest analysts I know, the smartest analyst I know in crypto.
Matty is great.
Dude, he's just like so switched on. And so we were already investing, and, I made really good money in the 2018, like metaverse early era into 2021, made a lot of money there. I'm like, dude, we know what we're doing. Like we're making serious money. Why don't we share the research we're doing for ourselves and sell it, and only be incentivized through subscription fees? Meaning that if the information we're putting out is not good, they will cancel their subscription and that's it. If we do a good job, they're making money, will they keep it? That's great. So if we're winning, they're winning, and it's a win-win, right? If we're not doing a good job, they cancel, they leave. That's the only way we make money. And any money we make in the business, we can then just buy more crypto with. It's like, well, okay, amazing. And
it is a proof in the pudding kind of thing of like, well, hey, we're putting the revenue back in. So
we're like, if we do a good job, we can just buy more crypto. That's ultimately what we're here to do. So that's kind of been the thesis of the business from the start. And there's been different variations of that. We're looking at different things. We're trying to do like NFT gated stuff. There was talks of a token at some stage. There was like all sorts of different stuff. At the end of the day, like right now, like it's just amazing to have, I think we've got about like 1,100 paying members that pay for our services. And these are not necessarily degens. You know, we're talking like entrepreneurs, doctors, mum and dads with a decent chunk of crypto that just have no time to navigate this space, and we just help them with our research. And ultimately, like, we're at a point now, it's like the success of our members drives, that's what's fulfilling for me, like being able to get up on stage at a conference or do a masterclass, or, doing a pod like this and being able to share my tips and all the losses and the wins and everything to help others not make the same mistakes. Like, that's what I like.
Yeah. No, mate, congratulations on everything that you've done so far. Like, it's quite impressive, like what you've built. And yeah, no.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. It's been fucking tough, man. Like, honestly, like, when I went solo on Collective Shift, like, yeah, in terms of solo, meaning like I, was like broke away from the ex-business partner. I was like, this is me. For 2.5 years, man, it was brutal. Like, we lost, with all the shenanigans that happened, we lost 80% of our revenue. We went from doing like, mid 6 figures a month to 50K a month. Like we lost like 80% of our revenue, in a matter of months. Yeah. And we had all the fixed expenses of massive staff. We had office. We were spending $250,000 a month. Like we were like, it was a big operation. And then to lose 80% of your revenue overnight, it's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And I was all in on this business because I sold a lot of my crypto to build Collective Shift, which meant I had a massive tax bill, and all of my money was in a non-liquid asset, being my brand, being my Collective Shift, to keep it going. So I had a huge tax bill, basically put all my crypto in to build this business, losing a shitload of money every month. And I was like, cool. and
Fantastic.
And then we went into like the 2022 bear market. I was like, oh, brilliant. Bitcoin's going to go to 16,000. Great. Thanks, guys. So
yeah, okay.
It was tough, man. We had to cut half our team. We had to cut salaries. It was just like, it was brutal, man. It was ramen noodle sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And we had to go out and raise money. And I mean, the reality was we still had revenue. We still had a good business model, but it was just like a tough time.
Yep.
And luckily, we raised from some really good investors. They backed me. We raised 1.5 mil a couple of years ago. And that's what sort of been able to, I was able to invest that and sort of turn the ship around. And, it's kind of been the start of dogs sparking up over like
He's very happy,
the story before.
Yeah.
It wasn't really until like sort of, late last year, October, when things started to really turn around, and I couldn't have done it without our team, man. Our team just pulled through. Like, we never lost anyone. All of our team took massive pay cuts, like, but they stuck by the journey. And yeah, now we're on the other side. It's pretty amazing because none of our competitors made it through. Like, we don't compete with anyone in Australia. There's no one doing true premium crypto research. Like, there's Mazari and Delphi in the US, but there's news sites, but we're not news, right? We're like investment analysis. So it's kind of like just an interesting spot to be in now. And it's kind of, it's exciting.
Well, it speaks to just like actually sticking with it and having conviction. Because I feel like, you have your influencers that do your, that love it when things are running hot, but it's like having that conviction to be like, all right, I guess this is like, I started my career properly in crypto in 2022, like at the very, very start, and kind of came in and was like, oh yeah, this is cool. And then was like,
well, not anymore. We've spoken about this too. Like, I love what the media brand that you're building. It's like, we've spoken about this as two completely ADHD, entrepreneurs. Like, it's very hard to not get distracted. Like, I love a shiny object syndrome. And I look back at everything that I've done and the time waste projects I've worked on, and it's all been shiny object syndrome.
Yep. Like, that is my absolute like kryptonite, is always being like, oh, this thing, that thing, that thing. And I feel like I've forgotten where I heard it, but there's a thing of like the curse of competence, where it's like, if you're kind of okay at stuff, it's even more dangerous because, you have that, you get addicted to that feeling of like getting, like having a small win and being like, oh, this could be a new thing. And then it's like and then after like a month or two, like the thing kind of dies out. And I feel like crypto is just a place where if you don't put blinkers on and just very much be like, okay, this is like the one thing that I'm going to focus on, you're just going to get absolutely demolished. Because even like last month, like I very much got delayed purely just from like literal like being investing in fucking meme coins, all things. But it's like when that was then a calculated kind of call. Like this year, I've very much tried to be a lot more, how would you say it? I'm totally blanking on the word, but a lot more just actually focused in on the one or two really important things that matter. And just like, you know, the wins come from staying consistent and just doing the same thing
100%.
more or less every day. And it's not pretty and it's not nice, but you just show up and you get it done.
Dude, I couldn't agree more. Like literally my COO, Aaron, you know, half his job is just literally just to remind me and tell me to stop fucking doing that shit. Like just focus on the thing.
Yeah.
And like, you know, that's been invaluable having other people around me in our team to really like, you know, I feel as though sometimes it's just a ball with a red flag. And like if you know, without someone holding the red flag, I'm just like running around in circles.
Yep.
But that consistency and dialed in, even from an investing standpoint, like, you know, when I was, you know, we've got a team of analysts now that do like a majority of the work and I do more strategy rather than like individual analysis on the individual tokens. But back in the day when I was going hard, like you've just got to be super dialed and you've just got to keep focusing. And patience was the biggest thing I didn't have. I made the biggest mistake. My biggest investing mistake in crypto was, ETHCon came to Sydney in 2018. Vitalik came down with the crew. And remember going, basically in a room with Vitalik and ETH was $80. And, dude, it was like, you know,
absurd.
It was like absurd, right? And all the talk was like, when is ETH going to get back to $100? Like that was like the biggest, like that was the biggest question. Like Vitalik, like when's ETH going to? He's like, well, you know, we're building, you know, and I can't copy his
but
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they had a bunch of new projects come in pitching at the conference, and one of them was at the time was called Haven from one of the Warwick brothers, and we were listening to Haven, this pitch, and we were like, oh my God, synthetic assets, there's going to be massive. Oh my goodness. It was like, you know, tiny market cap. And I was like, right, I'm in. Fuck yeah. So barreled in, don't know how much ETH I put in, like whatever, got in, was super pumped up, and it basically did nothing for a number of months. Well, what I felt was months, could have been weeks, I don't know. At the time I was like, you know, let's go.
This is the problem. Like you're in crypto, your, I guess, time preference, like it just gets destroyed, I feel, by, especially when you go through periods of like really quick gains.
Yeah.
You're like, it's been 4 days and nothing's doubled.
I demand an increase. It's like,
meanwhile,
and this is what happened, right? I sold out too early. I didn't know what was going on. I wasn't dialed in enough. Everything else was pumping up after this project. So I escaped, hit the exit button, ejected, went elsewhere. And little did I know that they were going through a rebrand. Haven rebranded to Synthetics, and Synthetics absolutely fucking took off. This thing literally went to Mars, and it was the most sickening feeling looking back, going, right, that's now worth in the millions.
Yep.
And I have a t-shirt that says Haven. All I have left. I still have the t-shirt to this day.
Hey, that's good.
Who's the real winner?
The t-shirt out of it, man. Like, listen, you know?
And it reminds me to this day, like patience in crypto is like super important.
It's not about the money. It's the shirts we get along the way.
The AS color poorly printed t-shirts.
Jesus, dude. That is savage. Yeah.
It's savage. But like, and that's what reminds me to this day of like, you know, where we're at, like, let's talk about the market right now. Like people are like, oh, this happening, you know, the bull market's, you know, everyone's euphoric. It's all happening. Like the bull market's going to end. Like, it's like, no, it's not. Like markets last forever. Like crypto is still going to be here when we're 80, right? Everyone chill the fuck out. Like this space moves so fast. We have such quick moves to the upside. We have quick moves to the downside, but overall this space is not going anywhere. There's going to be coins come, coins go. But ultimately, if you get in the right projects, in the right times, the right narratives, you can make an obscene amount of money. And I'm very certain we're nowhere near the end of this cycle right now. Like we're not even at the Bitcoin halving yet at the time of recording, right? And like, you know, yes, this cycle could be happening faster than others, but the euphoria felt in 2017 and 2021 is just the most absurd feeling you could ever feel. And everybody is in crypto. Like the whole world seems like they're going to be like everyone's making money, and that's when you know it's time to get the hell out.
Yeah,
and it just doesn't feel like that. Speaking to the exchanges, they're not seeing the retail volumes. A lot of the money seems to be circulating by bigger wallets. I'm going to say like folks like you and I that are sort of like, you know, rotating, you know, college funds through low cap coins. at this point in time.
I was going to say, folks like you, but not like, I'm like, mate, this is.
But, you know, it's just an industry that's just so exciting. And I think people just think too short term, ultimately. Like, people just they get the blinkers on and it's just too short term. Like, Bitcoin was at 40,000 in the start of Feb. Like,
yeah,
like, we just forget that.
it is something that I do. It's so difficult because it's like, I spent, like, just like you, I'm in this like 24/7. Like, it's bad, but I'm like, I essentially like live online looking at
I love it. So good.
tokens pretty much, like, and I mean for work as well, because it's like, and it's funny balancing that kind of thing of like doing the reporting and actually being like, okay, like serious analytical brain on, I'm actually doing like, you know, productive
DGen off, like, you know, professional on.
just can't wait to crack open the Dex tools again now.
Have another screen. Just,
No, I very much avoid shitcoining at work.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, it's one of those things that like, it will,
such a distraction, man.
like it is, and I feel like it's so dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's something that I just so strongly do not recommend for anyone. It's like, I spend all my time, like, for better or for worse, like my girlfriend just loves how much time I spend looking at tokens, but
There's no Netflix and chill. It's Dex, Green and chill.
yeah. Hey babe, sorry, I got to open Bird Eye. Just, I wish that wasn't true. She'll watch this and be like, yep, that's 100%. No,
Babe, you watch Senko tonight?
Yeah. Sorry guys, we're streaming on Senko. But it is quite interesting balancing that like analytic side of being like, okay, this is actually doing, you know, work in the industry, and I feel like I'm probably one of the more risk-on kind of reporters, but I do feel like it gives, like, if I'm reporting on stuff, actually having knowledge of doing it is so useful.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I've copped like a little bit of flack in the past of like, oh, geez, like, aren't you, you know, too heavily invested for a reporter? It's like, well, I think that having skin in the game is so much more important than like just kind of pretending that you're sitting above it all and being like, oh, well, I'm being
This is what they're doing.
so objective and unbiased. And I'm like, if there's something that I have a position in, I disclose or I just don't cover it. Like, there's enough media out there that can cover the things. And it's like, I feel as though it's difficult because there's the media issues with reporters at places like Bloomberg and, you know, just larger financial publications covering things. And I feel like it's a very easy thing for people to look at from the outside and go, oh, well, this journalist is covering this favorably because they hold a position in it. But I just feel like if it comes down to the individual editorial teams and the publications themselves, and it does raise questions, but I do think that it's like, if your integrity is sacrificed by you having exposure to a certain thing, like, you can no longer, you know, tell the truth about something because I hold some Bitcoin.
No,
it's like, I'm still very skeptical of, like, you know, Bitcoin's energy consumption claims. Like, it's the sort of thing where it's like, I always hold everything at an arm's length.
100%.
Working in this space. And yeah, I just think that the actual value accretive skills that come from just actually being in the industry and doing stuff and participating, especially as a crypto reporter, because it's like, you're kind of a tech reporter, you're kind of like a very niche, I was going to say, like, it's tech adjacent, but then you're also a finance reporter, and then just kind of everything else in between. And it is truly the world's most entertaining industry. Like,
man, we're in a similar boat, but like, all of that, we all invest in crypto. Like, as long as you have a disclosure, then for me, that's fine. You understand you own a piece of this, and people can smart people can recognize good journalism, right? Versus just pumping your bag. And like, that is the opposite of what you do. Like, even the newsletter you write, I love that, because it's like, you're in the weeds, you're looking at this thing, and you're actually describing what's going on at the ground level. You're not in your Eiffel Tower talking about, oh, this is what they're doing. It's like, well, I don't give a fuck about that. Like, tell me what's going on. Like, and you're not going to know that level of detail unless you're personally, literally invested in it, because what's the point?
why would you care?
Why would you care so much?
It's the same thing with like the economics majors being like, well, I think the economy is going to do this. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's fantastic. And it's so theoretical and it's so disconnected. So I'm like, have some fucking skin in the game.
100%. It's like it's like learning from a book or doing the real thing. It's like, where would you rather learn?
100%.
So,
and you do not learn by, it's true of True of everything. It's a very trite thing to say, but it's like I spent a lot of time at uni, did a philosophy degree, philosophy and econ of all things. So,
Jesus.
Much to my parents' disappointment, I started off in law and journalism.
Disappointment.
Yeah. No. It's more of a joke. Like it's a very. I do remember telling Dad though, being like, "Hey, remember I was doing law? Yeah, I'm doing philosophy." He was like, "Fuck."
That's so fascinating though. Like, you know, I mean, I quit school. I quit started year 12. So feel as though I went down that path of like, well, I need to do the thing, but economics was my favorite subject. Economics and business. It's just so fascinating. I didn't quite get to philosophy, but there's definitely pros and cons to both. I think you know the practical and the theoretical. But yeah, back to like the crypto side. Like actually being in the weeds versus listening to someone that's just kind of on the outs. Like you know you might go to the AFR and read about like Bitcoin, but you know they're probably not invested. Yeah, it's like no. You know, you're in the weeds. I want to hear what's going on at the ground floor.
Yeah, and I think that there's a function of all those things as well. Like the wonderful thing about different types of media is it's like if you want the AFR's perspective on crypto, you can go get it. And I do think that they have like, you know,
100%.
pretty solid coverage on a lot of stuff that I'm like, including crypto, where it's like you want there to be like actual charitable, not even charitable critics, but there's a couple of guys like Cass Pianci and Bennett Tomlin run the Crypto Critics pod.
Yeah.
And they fucking hate the idea of blockchain.
Yeah.
And they're just like, geez, like they hate the speculation, they hate the financial side. And I'm like, I really appreciate them and I really like them.
Yeah.
I've never met them, but it's like I like them as people because I think that everyone plays a role in contributing in their own way. And everyone loves to kind of come in with their own like, you know, hefty opinion of like, well, this is how everything should be done. It's like, calm the fuck down.
And that's why there's a market, right? That's why there's buyers and sellers. It's like, you know, there's winners and losers and there's skeptics, there's critics and there's believers.
Yep.
And that's what creates the market, you know? So we have to have that healthy skepticism. Otherwise everyone would be on the buy side, which would be amazing, but
which would be great, but yeah, no, it is fascinating. We were talking a little bit before about, you know, we're still, well, I mean, at the time of recording, we're still about, 10 days out from the halving?
Yeah.
So what do you see kind of happening post-halving?
I mean, it's eerily happening very similar to the 2020 Bitcoin halving, right? When we had sort of a nice little correction leading up, which we had like 20-25%. We have a consolidation through the Bitcoin halving itself. I would expect another sell-off that happened very textbook ETF announcement, sell off, you buy the rumor, sell the news. We'll probably expect the same to happen. I think the halving is more or less, you know, priced in at this point. And then we usually have like just a consolidation period because everyone's like, oh, okay, cool. Now what are we looking forward to now? Oh, it's boring. Sell off. And then fundamentally things sort of, you know, build up again. You know, if we're having steady inflows on the ETFs, maybe we have some sort of narrative that sort of comes back. You know, we have the election coming up later this year. You know, maybe that, you know, Trump gets in, Gensler's out. Like maybe it sort of spurs things a little bit more. You know, rates start to come down a little bit more. Bitcoin continues to build up. I would think that Bitcoin will continue grinding towards 100,000, like, you know, towards later this year. And then through like, once we really get through like real open waters in terms of price discovery, like Bitcoin hits 80,000, 85, 90 and breaks to 100, then I think it's like, oh, okay, this thing's actually legit. Like media comes back out, starts talking about Bitcoin again. Bitcoin breaks to 100. Like that's a big headline. Bitcoin breaks to 100,000 US. That's a big headline.
Yep.
That's going to get everyone's attention. Now it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Let's get back into crypto. Bitcoin's expensive, so let's like look at the other stuff. And that's generally how it happens. You know, retail get in, they start to sort of look at other stuff. And yes, there's going to be big corrections along the way. It's not going to be as easy as that. But yeah, ultimately, it's just all happening very, very simply and plainly, very similar to the previous cycles. History doesn't repeat, but it doesn't rhyme. And I definitely think it's happening and will happen very similar to the previous cycles. But when you get in the open waters, like at past all-time highs, it's like in pure price discovery. That's where it's like, well, who knows? You know, how crazy things will get.
True. There is that bias of like, well, Bitcoin is $100,000.
Yeah.
I can't afford Bitcoin. I know.
100%.
I'll go pick up the
that's what happens.
Whatever I can off the floor.
Yeah, it's like,
$50.
XRP, 60 cents. That's cheap. It's like, It's like, that's what retail investors look at. And, you know, I think that's, at the end of the day, when the craziness happens and big money rotates from BTC and ETH downwards and they start buying because they know that retail is coming. And then you get those big movements at like that later phase of a bull market when things are just going just ridiculously parabolic.
Yep.
That's an exciting time, but man, a lot of people lose a lot of money at that point. Like, because 90% of retail investors just come in and just get screwed.
True.
What
is your kind of approach for picking altcoins? Because I know that like a lot of the stuff that you talk about online is very much like have that core Bitcoin ETH position because it's just the most kind of sensible, reasonable thing to do. It's like if you want to actually protect wealth, not be exposed to these like horrific or even more horrific kind of like drawdowns when they do occur, like especially people coming from traditional finance, looking at this and being like, whoa, like a 20% wick in a day is not something that like people are very well acclimatized to at all. Like,
meanwhile, we're going for our second scoop of cereal of the morning.
Yeah.
It's like,
okay. Oh, okay.
Moving on.
Do I need to?
No, I think
we're cancel my lease. Like it's
honey, we'll find that bag.
Yeah.
We're big believers, as you know, Bitcoin and ETH up front. Like I think I own 50% BTC, 20% ETH, and then the rest altcoins. You know, ultimately we like to look at fundamental value that we think is going to be here for a long time, that has a good quality narrative and a team behind it that we think can sustain a bear and bull. So usually something with history that we've seen these founders get through a difficult time is bullish for us. So Maple, for example, is one that I'm bullish on. Team made it through the bear market. DeFi just under the hammer. Most of its competitors died off and they just keep innovating and made it through, like very lean. Good fundamental, tokenomics good. And I still think DeFi is severely undervalued because of the SEC sort of stuff. So that's something we look at. Narratives like, the layer 3 DMT, which we're both, invested in. And, I think, I found that from you and I sent it over to Maddie and we both had a look and we were like, oh shit. Hello. Like it really reminds me of early metaverse back in 2018 when the metaverse was kind of a thing, but it wasn't. And you look at these metaverses, you're like, oh, this is kind of like shit, but it's got like, it could be something. And I can see how someone will stick onto it. I think that's where like Sanka is right now. It's like, this is kind of like, kindly shit, but where it's going and what the way, when I say shit, I'm talking about the UI and like the spin polish. It's like, that doesn't matter. The idea of the behind it of like, a Web3 Twitch streaming platform, rewards incentivization for a decentralized platform for viewers and creators, and then burn mechanisms and a DEX and like NFTs. It's like, okay, then a layer 3 and you look at it like against other projects and layer 3s, you're like, okay, this has got legs. Yeah. This could be something that could be actually pretty big.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoy seeing crypto native products now that I've been in the space long enough. Like, I feel like it's one of those things that if you're new, you'd be like, what in the shit? Like, it's a streaming platform built on Arbitrum. Like, there's so many layers of knowledge of like, well, there's ETH and then there's Arbitrum and then it's built on them. Oh, and they're releasing another chain that's a layer. It's like, fuck, what?
No, what?
But I do really like, and I'm just, shamelessly shilling like bags here, but it is the reason that I bought was because we were streaming. We wanted to do with like the Brotato Capital pod, which is me and a couple of other guys that are dispersed throughout Australia, do a little weekly / fortnightly pod called Le Pod. Everything about it is just silly business. And we're like, well, we'll see if it turns into anything. But I think everyone just has like a lot of fun with it. And that's the wonderful thing. Having everyone over at my house, the one spot, it was literally like, my girlfriend came in and was like, holy shit, you guys look like you're like having like a little play date. Like we're grown men. Literally like having like a LAN party back in the day where you play like Modern Warfare 2 on 2 fucking computers. It was like that, but 5 dudes just dispersed throughout the house.
A pod parties.
1L was sitting in the kitchen on like this low chair on like my kitchen counter, like perched up like this. I was like, fuck. It's big budget productions, So,
oh man, I love it.
But we wanted to stream on something that was like actually a crypto product.
Yeah.
And I remember one morning we were having an issue. It was like Australia Day. We were doing a stream at like 8 o'clock in the morning because that's
what you do.
That's what we do in our spare time. I have a very exciting life. And we like messaged the dev of the things we're having issues and got back to us 10 minutes later and was like, yeah, it's fixed.
No
we're like,
way.
fuck. Like, and it's this thing of like, it's so boutique and it's so small.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, you know, you wouldn't expect that from Twitch. You're like, hey, I'm going to message the CEO of fucking Twitch. Hey, bro,
Got a little bug
having some
here.
issues. And I'm like, it just kind of speaks to the fact that, I don't know, team's nice. Like, they're really pushing hard.
Yeah.
And a couple of the guys from Rotato met up with the Sanko crew in New York, and they're switched on guys that just want to do something a little different. I just like it. I always get behind
And that's what drives narratives.
people trying shit.
And that's what drives narratives. You know, I think that's a big thing. You know, trying to find, like, I mean, that was like the Solana play too, right? Like, you know, Jupiter was, you know, that's been performing really well for me as well. Like, you know, looking at these other chains and like you said, like actually looking at the individual ecosystems and going, which ones are going to get the narrative, right? And then like you back Solana and you back the MetaMask of Solana being Jupiter. It's like, okay, well, just if I just sit in that, which is not a huge amount of risk, as long as Solana keeps getting attention, that's going to perform well.
Yep.
And then I've sort of built out, you know, I've got the Eigenlayer, airdrop I've invested. Still layer 2s like really have underperformed, you know, sort of optimism arbitrum really haven't done that great. Nick, our analyst, wrote a piece the other day about how he thinks sort of that's coming like later this year. So interesting to see when and if that sort of narrative comes. I think MakerDAO is a big one. That's just been just a workhorse the last like 7 years. And, you know, the fact that that's...
I mid-curved it's one of those things that I just looked at and was like I remember for a piece I was doing, I was trying to look into like the MakerDAO, like how it works. I'm like, I don't mind a good abstract financial concept, but I remember like reading through their documentation and just being like, never in 1,000 million fucking years will I understand what's actually happening here, like at a mechanics level. I was like,
Nah, me neither, man. I mean, ChatGPT's been my best friend.
anyway, hey buddy, explain what the fuck this does.
Dumping white papers in ChatGPT, go, just explain this to me, like, God forbid.
Even better, auditing the code.
Yeah, auditing
Being like, it's open source. It should be like, hey, find vulnerability.
Yeah.
It's like, here's one. You're like,
Should I invest? But yeah, so
they
like
did that with a couple of token bot sniping protocols. Like one of the Banana Gun contract got hacked. This is before Banana Gun became Banana Gun. We're now getting into very deep degen shit here. But someone ended up auditing the code on ChatGPT
and it found
the vulnerability.
Wow.
And they were like, guys, who the fuck did you hire to do your audit?
Wow.
And it just kind of...
hitting the sell button at that point, you're like...
Oh, yeah, it completely tanked and they had to like maybe it wasn't shit. I hope I'm getting my naming right. We'll scratch this from the record. It's not Banana Gun because I know someone that'll be very angry at me if I get this wrong. So we'll...
Some project.
Edit, take that out.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Ethereum is the best risk to reward play this year. Holding a really good position of ETH, I think that's underperformed ultimately. And I think once it gets the spotlight back from a big BTC, I think the fundamental, I mean, you just spoke to, you just had a big ETH.
I had a great chat with Sasano. Yeah. Fantastic. Always just kind of, I feel like he had, you know, the Brotato Capital Po, there's 5 of us, and I feel like we had the collectively less IQ.
Dude, he's
Sasso coming on the pod.
He's got his head screwed on. He's like the most like delta neutral bull in terms of like, he's not like out there throwing shit out there like super crazy, but he's just a smart dude that backs up everything he says. And when I did the pod with him last year, I was like, God, I need to sell more stuff to buy Ethereum right now. Yep. I'm not sure how you felt after just chatting with him, but
just the level of conviction and like I really like it in the sense that he has really strong logic and reason behind the conviction as well. It's not just like an emotionally, he crosses me as a very, very like I was going to say like Apollonian kind of guy of being incredibly just kind of cognitively in tune with his beliefs. Yeah. And I feel like that's actually kind of rare in the crypto space. Like a lot of people say they believe in certain things and then they have these times where things show up and they're like, oh, well, I didn't mean it like that. But I feel like with Sasano, it's very much like, oh no, here's 13 reasons why I hold these positions, and go through them. And that's what I kind of got that sense on the pod chatting with him for the first time. I was like, this guy
he's a smart dude.
Yeah, he's just very, very methodological and I really like it.
Yeah.
And it's like he will say these claims Like he came out being like, oh, I think ETH ETF gets approved in May. And he had fucking like his own fantastic reasons for why. And I was like, this is ideal. Yeah. So yeah.
No, I think he's a super switch on dude. I think he's going to perform well. But yeah, it's still, I mean, I'm quite boring in that sense. And we teach that. It's like, you don't need to, especially if we're talking to retail, right? So it's like, you know, unless you've got full time in the space or you're very sophisticated, like you don't need to take that much risk. You know, you end up just going to screw yourself over if you're time poor and you're trying to figure all this stuff out. Like, you meat and potatoes, get BTC and ETH in the door, then play around with some alts, but just find good positions, hold for a period of time, take a good exit strategy which we can help, and just like don't fuck it up. Like, that's all you need to do.
I think that's a big one of it's so silly, but it's like, don't fuck it up. Yeah. That's literally, it's pretty funny. That's the title of the newsletter that I'm putting out.
I love it.
Essentially. Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's good. Because I feel like it's so easy to get kind of sucked into the dopamine-addled haze of when things are going very, very well. Yeah. And like before you know it, you can kind of be like, oh, damn, what happened to this?
Because you look back in a bear market, you're like, wait, I had how much money? And I didn't, like, wait, what? But in a bull, you're like, oh, it's going to keep going up. It's like, it's never going to go down.
And adjusting those targets all the time of like, well, it's already here that.
Yeah.
What's to stop it from going to 70 billion trillion dollars?
And dude, that's why I'm like, what I really talk about a lot, because I've lived through this, is like, for a lot of people, for most people, you don't have to pick the absolute pico top. Like, live your life and do things with crypto to make your life better. And like, I try and live that. You know, like, you know what? I'm making good money in crypto. Yes, I could make a lot more, but also I could get a few things here to just make my life like even better. Like, get myself to like a 7 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10. If I can do this, like bought a car, got a chef, like, you know, bought an Apple Watch, and I'm buying a new mattress. And I'm like, now I'm sweet. Like,
I like that the mattress and the Apple Watch come in and
bro,
chef, Tesla, mattress.
Mattress are like,
but that is,
do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I was doing this reflection the other day. I like sat down, like, wow, like life is fucking great right now. Like, I don't need a lot of materialistic things, you know, like, you know, I was looking at a watch for a bit and all these sort of things. I'm like, you know what? That'd be nice, like down the line, but it's not going to really make my life better per se.
Yep.
Like a car, yes. A guy that makes me healthy food so I don't need Uber Eats and I can work more.
Especially if you fucking hate cooking. Like, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, find the things that you hate doing and then use money to get you the time back from those things. It's
100%.
like, I love cooking.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
do more of that.
Yeah. I'm like, there's a bunch of other shit that I'm like,
100%.
I would happily pay someone to take these things off.
And I feel as though you do those things. I know you've got awesome like goals of like, you want to go to France and, you know, do the whole like, you know, overseas travel and, you know, live over there and like amazing. Like, if you can do those things, that's what fucking matters.
Yeah.
No one's going to look back and go, man, he's such a good guy because he sold within 5% of the top. Like,
bro, this guy sold the Pico top of a sub 500 shitcoin. What a guy.
What a guy.
Did I tell you?
Did I do that? Yeah. But like, for you internally, if you can do the things that, and I think this has like been a whole mindset shift. Because go back a year ago, Ben, I was like, I've got to make all this money. I want to get to this number. And yeah, I've got those numbers still in my head, but it's not a driver right now. It's like, no, I want to optimize my life to a point where I can just be like a 7, if not an 8 out of 10 every day.
Yep.
If I get to an 8 out of 10 every day, on average, yes, I'm going to have bad days, but like, if I can do things that make my life get to that point and crypto can help me do that, well, then it doesn't fucking matter. Like,
how would you, like, and it's the kind of thing, I don't think I've asked you this before, but how do you look at where your sell targets are? And again, not getting into like, you know, not financial advice, but it's like when you're talking to people about selling, what are some of the things that you discuss? Because I feel like it's one of those things where everyone has a target. And then if that gets absolutely, like, let's just say that you had a target of like, oh, I'd love it if Bitcoin got to $60,000 and now we're sitting well above it out from the halving. And it's one of those things of like, well, should I, like, is it silly for me to not take profit at 70 and, you know, pay myself and I don't know.
It's a good question. I always start with, what are your goals personally? Like, I start with like, and let's get realistic. Like, some people come to me and go, oh, hey man, I've got $10,000. How do I be a millionaire? It's like, well, you know, go and put on the Tesla.
I'm better.
Yeah, go elsewhere. But like, I try and get a realistic number from them and try and get 2 or 3. Like, I like to have like a bearish scenario, a base scenario, and a bullish scenario. And my goal is to tick off my bearish scenario as quick as possible. It's like filling the tank up, right? So my goal would be to get to, let's say, and I look at an individual coin perspective. So like, Maple for me, like, we're probably 2 or 3x away from getting to a market cap where I feel as though now we're getting in the overvalued territory. And I'm going to sell down on that position to basically fill my bearish target for this bull market. And then I'll start to rotate up. So I like to take like chips off the table. So sell down percentages to fill up those bearish base and hopefully bullish cases as soon as possible. But I do it in a way where I'm taking 10%, 20% as coins or individual projects are getting to a valuation where I think it's getting pretty overvalued. And I'll take 10 to 50% off the table into stables or fiat and keep the rest to ride, and I'll try and get near the top. So that way I'm taking 50% off roughly to fill the goals that I have of my bearish case, and then the rest of 50% I'm going to ride, just try and pick near the top. If I don't get it right, well, I've already taken a good chunk, but if I do get it right, well, then I'm getting much further towards my bullish case in terms of profits. And that all comes back to one of my goals. So my goals are I'm trying to buy my mum and dad a home. I want to have enough cash to reinvest in the next bear market, and I want to diversify and get a large share equities portfolio because I'm 99% concentrated in crypto right now. I want to diversify away.
I'm 100.
I'm 103. So
I don't own a stock anymore since
amazing.
Yeah.
So ultimately the way I think about it is I want to get financial freedom, and time freedom really. And I don't want to risk everything by continuing to bet the farm to get near the top. I want to take chips off the table as we go up.
Yeah.
And that way, yes, looking back, if I held everything to the top, I could have made a lot more. But the risk you're taking the longer you hold is exponentially higher, because once the crash period happens, it becomes exponentially harder to sell on the way down, because it was at that price and now it's this price, and you're going, well, I can't sell now. And then that's how you just drag.
It's always hindsight bias. If only I had held until the perfect day at 3 p.m. on a Thursday when I was going to obviously sell at this point. It's
no.
Yeah. I feel but it's funny because it's I still find myself, doing that with certain things. I'm like, if only I'd held and done this thing. And it's just
you've just got, that's the psychology of it, bro. It's that's just.
It's not often, but it's there are those moments where you fumble something incredible and you're just
wow. It's especially on the highly speculative stuff, it's I'm not sure if you're a gambler, but if you go to the casino, right?
It's funny. I've never
gambled?
Not really. It's never held any kind of
fascinating
weight to me, but,
well, you're very switched on though. It's you're not I meet some people that are just completely they would no hope on earth of actually retaining any money they make in crypto because they just want to keep betting the farm.
Yeah.
You're a smart dude with risk.
Well, it's funny because I'm extremely risk on.
Yeah.
But it's weird how money is probably the one place where it's I'm probably the most calculative with my risks everywhere. Yeah. But it's I was heaps into highlight. I've always been drawn to extremely risk on activities, especially as a younger adult. I did shit that people it's probably not smart. I'm it'll be fine. And then afterwards I was yeah, fuck, man. Wish someone had told me not to do that. Everyone's looking around
it's ADHD.
Yeah. That's probably quite anyway.
So I think so I spoke to a high net worth financial advisor recently and just getting some learnings from him basically is what's the future state look like? Where do I need to get to? What does this look like? Basically there was 2 main targets that he found his high net worth individuals got to, which made life considerably easier. The first target is $3 million of investable liquid assets, not including your home that you live in. If you get to $3 million of investable liquid assets, life becomes very easy. Or easy. Basically that's the tipping point where you can live off that because you can earn, let's say 8 to 12% on 3 million every year. You're making 200K just off dividends, right? Or yield. The next target beyond that is 10 million. Once you get to $10 million of liquid investable assets, everything basically becomes as easy as it will get. And anything beyond 10 million basically makes no material difference because you can't really do much else with it unless you want to go buy PJs and islands and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So they're the two like levels. So if you think about like 3 million as like the first trigger of like really financial freedom, then you can sort of work backwards from there. You don't need to get there this cycle. They can kind of be a few cycles down, but maybe you want to get to 500K or a million. You want to sort of work your way towards that and get that in an asset that, you know, like Bitcoin. Like for me, I want to continue to buy and hold Bitcoin for a long period of time.
Yep.
A lot of my profits that I'll make, I'll either just reinvest into BTC now or the next bear market. And in 20, 30 years, I'll get to 3 million, like, fuck, I'll probably get to 10 million like a lot sooner. But like, I think Bitcoin's going $1 million a coin in the next 20, 30 years. You have a few BTC in your pocket. You don't need to take a lot of risk. By the time we're, you know, middle-aged, life's sweet, you know?
I do treat it like almost like burying gold in the backyard.
Yeah.
With buying Bitcoin, putting it on a ledger and just being like,
goodbye.
literally, I'm like, and it's gone.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't think about it until one day. I'm like,
I think the Bitcoin ecosystem will create this financial ecosystem where you can just like, let's say you had 10 BTC or over 1 BTC. Or what, it doesn't matter. You know, but like you'll be able.
well off that. Don't you worry. No. 10? 1? No, sorry.
But you'll be able to just loan. Well, you can do it now. Loan against your BTC position to cash flow it. You pay 6% back. You never have to sell your BTC, and you can just live off your Bitcoin. Like
this is an interesting thing. I'm like, this is now getting into a can of worms. With the BTC eco stuff, I saw some maxis kind of come out of the woodwork recently talking, because it's all on Rune. Rune protocol, is that it? Maybe I'm misnaming it, but I'm pretty sure it's Thorchain.
Oh, yeah.
Thorchain.
Yeah.
And that's like the main platform that they've then kind of upgraded their protocol recently. They kind of slashed liquidity, like loan requirements. So it's like you put more initial down, but there's essentially they've promised no liquidations, 0% interest.
Right.
And I feel like that just triggers a lot of people in the space who've been through things like just Luna and shit of like, hey, don't worry, guys, like guaranteed kind of yield on your stuff. Well, I mean, this is more taking out like, you know, cash based on a Bitcoin loan.
Yeah.
But yeah, how do you feel about like if you are a BTC guy and you're like, fuck, well, I can't actually, you know, I can't use it as stuff. It's still an asset that I can loan against. Yeah. What do you think about loaning against BTC in that scenario?
I mean, the problem we've faced is everyone just doesn't trust it because of Celsius and you know, Luna and BlockFi and like all these centralized parties. But at the end of the day, I think that's the way it's going, like where you can have traditional Bitcoin DeFi protocols where you can loan against your BTC in a way that it's like, it's safer, collateralized, you know, you can see your BTC in the address. It's not being mixed up. It's not being traded. It's not doing anything like that. It's just like, you know, it's just got someone else on the other side of the screen, you know, wants to use that capital and they'll pay you 6% to use it, you know. I don't see why that won't happen or isn't a good thing. Like, as long as we can build these protocols that are reducing the counterparty risk, so we're not getting the disaster that we've had in the last 2 or 3 years, like, ultimately, I think that's what people want. Right? That's what I want. You know, like if I'm holding a decent chunk of Bitcoin, I don't want to sell it, but if I can cash flow against it, you know, that's how the banking system ultimately should work. You know, like you should have to have, okay, now we're going a bit deep, but like that's a rabbit hole.
In the last 10 minutes. Come on, we'll just go into the
let's go into like
metaphysics of loan. Let's go.
But like, yeah, the idea of having $100,000 in Bitcoin and being able to cash flow $40,000 of that and using the rest in collateral, and you pay it down, you know, 6 or 7% or whatever it is, and it means you don't have to sell your Bitcoin and you can stay within the ecosystem. Like, I think that's going to just continue to grow. And I think that's ultimately a good thing. Like, if we don't have to use banks, like, amazing.
Yeah. It is quite interesting because there's the now kind of infamous clip of Michael Saylor showing up on, I don't know which station it was, but he was essentially just talking about he'll keep buying Bitcoin until the day he dies. Now, I didn't like Michael Saylor when I came into the space, but I've kind of come around. I'm like, hey, this guy is just like, there's something so funny about Michael Saylor to me that I'm just like, he's quite aware that it's like, I feel like there's a level of self-awareness with Saylor that it's like he's quite aware that he's like taking the piss.
He's a smart dude.
And I feel like there's a lot of people that read into it at a very kind of like earnest level where they're like, no, this guy's just buying Bitcoin. And the presenter who was interviewing was like, you know, come on, Michael. Like, you know, everyone buys stuff with the expectation of selling it. And it's like, he didn't really have to say it, but it's like, no, people buy stuff with the expectation of loaning against it.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's something that, like, if you could figure out, the problem is with these kind of protocols is it's something that there's a guy called Chris Black has talked about it.
Yeah,
And he's like, you know, the issue is with a lot of these protocols, they can change rules. They can change terms and conditions. And they can be like, no, actually, we want to recall the loan. So I do think there's a ways to go for Bitcoin DeFi. And I think there's a lot of, it will need to be like a well-tested product over a long period of time. Because I feel like everyone's just got that like, you put like, you bury it in the backyard and you figure it out.
Yeah.
But I do think that it just makes the most sense that if you want to have a value accretive ecosystem where people do shit, you can't just treat it as this thing of like, well, we'll put it in a coffee tin and we'll hide it under the floorboards. It's like, no, you should probably be utilizing it so that it's actually like an asset that people want
100%.
over time, that aren't just people being like, oh, so it's digital gold? It's like, yes.
Yeah.
And let's have a vault for it and let's use it to back stuff.
Yeah. So, but you're right. We do need the protocol and the businesses to actually be the intermediaries so we can actually trust them and know that it's going to be legit. We're not going to all just lose our money.
Yep.
And that's what's not here right now.
Yeah.
But like, again, like Michael is kind of an interesting guy because the reality is, you know, the MicroStrategy stock did nothing for like 12 years. It was basically flatline. It was like, you know,
business intelligence software. I'm sure they do stuff. I don't know what.
That thing was flat as a surfboard for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And he goes, you know what? And I don't think he's ever said this publicly, but like, you know, my intuition is he just went, you know what, fuck this. Let's just buy Bitcoin and let's just like ride the wave. And, you know, all of a sudden their stock is just exponentially grown. And will they ever sell their Bitcoin? Well, probably not, because MicroStrategy may probably live beyond, you know, Michael, right? So hold a bunch of Bitcoin on the balance sheet, let it go up. And
do you imagine the day that Michael Saylor goes, oh yeah, sorry guys, had some shit come up, I'm selling everything. It would just be like,
sure, that's the ultimate, I mean, I'm not going to say it's like Satoshi levels, but like, I mean, what is he own? 1% of the supply?
It's something phenomenal now. It's over, at current prices, it's well over 8 or 9.
What's so wild that he's just like issuing bonds and then like buying Bitcoin with the bonds and then just like, I don't know. I don't exactly know how the repayments work of like private bond dividend distribution, but I'm like, he's basically just like loaning money to buy more Bitcoin and then paying it off over
like
time.
Diluting MicroStrategy shares.
Yeah.
Like, so we're doing this as loan repayments and we're going to buy more Bitcoin. It's like, I do think long-term MicroStrategy shares feel like a dumb thing to own in terms of like, it's literally just a business that finances buying more Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So
why don't you just buy Bitcoin?
Just diluting the performance relative. I think it was up, like well over 1,000% in the last 3
really?
Since. Yeah, it was something phenomenal. Like, it's way outperformed Bitcoin. But I do think there will be that day of like, wait, what are we doing with these shares again? And it's like, like,
wait, what does that business do?
It's like business intelligence stuff.
Business intelligence.
Don't worry. Yeah.
That's like a company going, we do AI. It's like, okay, cool, guys. Yeah, great.
It's like you've wrapped ChatGPT. But I mean, I don't know the inner workings well enough of MicroStrategy to make like actual conclusive comments on it, but it does feel like one of those things where I'm like, probably just hold the underlying. Don't know. Is that not volatile enough? Like, isn't don't you have enough like risk with that?
But, you know, I think Bitcoin being bought on the balance sheet of companies is just going to become more and more obvious. You know, we do a collective shift. It's like, would you rather hold a bunch of cash, which you're losing like 10 to 20% purchasing power every year, or do you buy a hedge against that, like Bitcoin? And ultimately, that's what's happening with retirement funds. Like Fidelity now have 1 to 3% Bitcoin allocation to conservative and balanced ETFs, which is ridiculous. Like, that's insane. It's starting to be seen as a risk-off asset. I think it'll be in superannuation funds here in Australia the day that someone pulls their finger out and decides that we probably should update our Ponzi-like housing superannuation play. Like, it's too big to fail. Anyway, that's a whole other...
that's a separate post. We could go into that.
But you know what I mean? Like, that's where I think it's going. And you're just going to have consistent buyers with a limited supply asset with new supply halving every 4 years. It's like, what else do you want to own?
Yeah. It does kind of baffle me that I took a very long time to come around to Bitcoin as like an investable asset. But it's become a lot clearer to me as to the reasons why you'd want it. I did have my issues with it, like being a hedge against inflation during like 2021, 2022, when it's like, literally it was like inflation up. Oh, and I was like,
you were like, oh yes, thank you, interest rates. Oh.
But again, it's like, and it is one of those kind of like annoying statements, but I've started to come around to the idea of zooming out just that little bit more and being like, okay, it didn't work perfectly as everyone fled directly into Bitcoin and bought it. It's like, obviously not. It's like, I do think that a lot of crypto sits outside of macroeconomic circumstances as well. I'll take my own claim there with a grain of salt. But yeah, I've become a lot more partial to the thesis that Bitcoin over time is becoming slightly more of a hedge against debasement. And again, I don't subscribe to the Austrian School of Econ thing to the full extent. But like the Robert Breedlove, like to that extent, I'm like, I fundamentally, that's where I kind of go like, I step off the train here. But it's like, I'm not the kind of person that has like hyper mega conviction on things, I guess, in a financial sense. I'm not that way emotionally inclined where I'm kind of like, I like assessing and I like...
Yeah, you like to be fluid.
And I like to be like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And that's just me. I probably won't make any trillions of dollars.
No, I like it.
Because I won't bag hold till the very, like to the bitter end. I'm kind of just like...
Well, I think too, like, it's also, you're right, like, it's got the properties of a hedge against inflation, but the reality is it there right now? Well, again, it's a market. People have to believe it for it to work. You know what I mean? There's buyers and sellers, right? Just because I say that's a cup doesn't mean like it's a cup. You know what I mean? Like, we've all got to believe it. So, I think it's going to take the Fidelities adding it in risk-off ETFs. It's going to take superannuation funds to add it. It takes more of the market to believe that is the thing before it becomes the thing. But that's where you can make money. Because you're basically believing in something and backing something before it's actually occurred. And if it actually plays out, well, that's how. And
that's what the risk is for. It's just like, well, the chance that it may not, then there's your risk.
That's your risk.
But no, I do think that I'm much more subscribed to the idea that it becomes, and like you have fucking BlackRock. It's one of those things where it's like you have 10 major financial institutions. Obviously, they make their little fees. And like it's still a product to them. Like it's still a thing. They're not like fully orange pilled. And neither am I to a certain extent, but I do just see it. You look at its qualities compared to other assets and you think like, okay, why wouldn't you have this as an investable asset class? The end. But
yeah, man. Then you get a $100 million tokenized fund. It's just like,
Ethereum discussion. That's something we can leave for a later pod.
Man, so there's about 4 new pods there we came up with the last half an hour.
It's like we've got a lot of topics. We'll crack out get back to the couch. This is a very nice
studio. How do you like the studio, mate?
It's pretty good. I like that this is for the NGMI podcast. I'm like, I'm going to finish up with like a thank you so much for coming on. It's like, well, I mean, your house, your gear.
No, it worked out well, mate, because, we had the setup and, it was, it meant I didn't have to leave the house either. So
it is pretty good. I'm like, walk in, get mic'd up.
Get mic'd up.
I'm very, very happy with
And now we're going to shoot off to listen to another Brotato Capital, founding member, Swiss.
Yes. Speak about ordinals.
Just pump Bitcoin for us.
Should be good. I'm looking forward to that this afternoon.
That should be good, man. Yeah.
Should be something going on.
We'll take the new whip for a spin and
true.
Couple of chapel laps and
we'll do a couple manies. This is, ladies and gentlemen, a couple of manies in the Tesla.
Mate, so I
promise this isn't a cringe crypto podcast. I promise.
We might have cut this out by now. I remember back over in Tasmania when I used to be young, that in Launceston, right, the blocky route would it took 20 seconds because the city's like, it's not even a city, it's just a little town. Like it's like 4 streets and you've done a lap of it.
Mate, that's I grew up in a coastal. It's not even a town, it's a village, and it was called Wooleye. Wooleye Mini Waters.
It's like it's a village.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. Like 200 to 300 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like we didn't have internet there till I was like 13.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, no,
You're a proper
I lived
village.
in the sticks, man. Like it was the kind of thing where it's...
Like, are you like bare feet?
No, we had shoes. we did have shoes. But I remember taking my girlfriend there on like a trip to see my family. And then the first time she was ever there, she was like, what the fuck is this? And I was like, yeah, this is where I grew up till I was 17 years old. Like we don't have a supermarket. There's the petrol station that is kind of like the shop. And of course there's a pub. So,
Of course.
And then
Wait,
Chinese
you're living
restaurant.
you're in a house, right? You're not like...
Yeah, no.
Dude, so in my head, I'm like... You're like...
You said a village, so you're
like-
imagining just like
in my head, like
small huts.
You're like a hut, like a bamboo, like a tent, and you're just bare feet.
The village is a loaded word. It's a very small town. But
Okay.
Yeah. But no, I understand the very, very small town kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was a place that I loved growing up in, but at the same time could not wait to leave.
Yeah.
But I go back and I'm like, ooh, I see why my parents moved and lived there. It's fucking fantastic.
Chill, quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
Mate.
But dude, great to have you.
I was going to say,
Great to be on.
great to, it's like, it's such a funny setup.
Weird setup, isn't it?
I will say thank you for coming on the show, but also thank you for hosting me in your house and using all of your gear. So very much appreciate it.
No, it's fine, man.
I'll claim as much of this as I can.
You had to travel here, man, so I appreciate that, and it was good fun, man. But it feels as though we could have gone for another 2 hours.
Yep. Well, time to wrap it up.
Thanks, bro.
Mate, thanks for coming on the show.
Cheers, man.